How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Diamond Mounted channel. Today we are working on a plain wedding band, and I'm going to show you how to convert something like that into a full eternity ring. It's not a necessarily difficult thing to do, however it's important to work very neatly and accurately. So what we're doing is drilling out the stone holes all the way through and all the way around the ring, and then we are going to be phrasing out the spaces and the gaps for the claws. So the main important things are neatness and accuracy to make it work and look good as a full eternity ring. Let's get on with it. So first things first. I think normally I'd be strict on having stones before you do a job or work into it, but for round stones you can get them in pretty much any type of gemstone in any measurement when you're going for round, so it's not so important this time. Take your marker pen. Have a marker pen. I talk about it a lot in my videos. It's one of the most useful things on your bench. A fine liner pen. And I'm sure some setters are going to be rolling their eyes at me, but I like to work quickly and efficiently. I just go as fast as possible to the finished result, the easiest way. That's how I like to make jewellery. So I'm always open to new ideas. Like if you see my video and you don't like the way I did something, or you have a suggestion how to improve it or make it quicker and easier, then I'm all for that. Yeah, please let me know and I'll try it out. So that's kind of the size of my stone. I'm not going bigger than the width. I want it to sit just in there, just on the edge. Ideally, because I'm thinking when it's finished, I want to be able to polish the side very nicely without the edges, the girdles of the stones sticking out. You can still do it obviously, but I like the idea of them just sitting just inside the edge, but not so much you can see metal down either side of the stone. So I want them as big as possible without the girdles going over the edge. So yeah, with your marker pen, draw a dot on there. That's the size of your stone. Obviously, you can just measure the width of your ring. And with that measurement, I'd be tempted to go 2.2. But if you open that up, I'll just show you, like tenths of a mil is nothing as a measurement. Really, really nothing. Oh, come on, Chris. I mean, that is, I mean, you can really see how nothing that is. So I'd be aiming to fit 2.1 mil stones in there. That's the safest bet, and then that gives me a bit of a chance to buff it back and polish it nicely when stones are in there, if I need to. I would definitely recommend having it all polished and finished before setting. And then once, obviously, you're going to need to work on it a little bit to tidy up and clean up all the claws and things, but there's less work to do after it's set if you polish it before setting, which is beneficial when you've got delicate, expensive stones in there. I've got sapphires to go in this one. Yeah, 2.1. Okay, right. So this is a technique I was shown how to do as an apprentice by a jeweller who really, in hindsight, wasn't very good or knew what he was doing. But even after 20 years more experience, I kind of haven't really settled on another technique that suits me better. I've just grown up with it. So yeah, I'm literally just drawing my stones on there, getting them as close as I can. I'm not rushing around. Obviously they're quite messy, but I'm basically drawing my stones on there, and I go all the way around. When I get to about here, you start to get a feel of like how it's going to end up. Obviously you want the last one to finish up exactly the same as the others, but there is an element of spacing them out just so you can get them to all fit exactly how you want around. So obviously the ring can be any size, so it differs the amount of stones are going to go in there. So I'm drawing around it really quite badly. I think this is running out of ink. And then it's very easy to adjust. If you go around it stabbing it with a pair of dividers, you've got little marks in there, and then if you want to adjust it, it's a bit annoying having that mark in there. But with this, you can just wipe it with acetone or nail varnish remover, or just give it a quick scratch with a buff stick, you can erase it and adjust it easily. So I've gone around the whole thing now. I'm just looking around it. Some are a little bit small. Just considering the spacing between them. What happens is as you go around it, you get neater at drawing them as you go around. So where it ends is always clear to where it starts. I get my dividers. Find halfway. Just go from one side or the other. You can always draw two lines, I guess, either side of the middle if it's not quite right. Also with the black ink, you can mark it very, very lightly with dividers and see the line. You haven't actually got to really score into the metal. Now with use some graver, pusher, any kind of spike. I've got this trusty old dart. Again, one of those things, not the correct tool, but I've just grown up with it since my apprenticeship. Just put a little dot in the middle of one of your spots. Now this is where you really have got to start being accurate and stop mucking about with your marker pen. What I'm going to do is open my dividers, and I'm going to, from my initial dot, I'm going to find exactly from that one to halfway to the next one. And I'm just going to scratch the most gentle little line and then mark it up and then go around the whole thing, going from one to the next, trying to be very, very accurate, only scoring from exactly from your line you just drew and then moving on to the next one, doing a line exactly from the one you previously drew. And then eventually, hopefully, it will finish up exactly on your dot on the last one. That's very, very important because you're going to drill all the way through. So it's got to be accurate. You really don't want to having to start pulling your drill about to change the measurements as you're actually going through it. So before you commit to that level of actually drilling, get your markings perfect. So with your dots in your ring, that's important because you always start, you're going to be adjusting it, you don't always get it right first time. At least you know you're starting at exactly the same spot. So I put a little line in that one and then put this end of my dividers on that line and then just touch it again, next one. Move it around, put that one again, touch it, next one. This is working out okay. Obviously, I quickly drew these dots, so they are not 100% accurate. But just as a guide, it normally works out okay. So this is what I've got. As you can see, if that will focus correctly. All my dots all working out to the same measurement all the way around. You may, don't be too frustrated if you have to start again. It's reasonably quick to go around it, and just the tiniest adjustment on your dividers will make a huge difference on how they space out. So don't, in your frustration, just wang it right round, like a quarter of a turn, because it's just going to make a mess of it. Just the tiniest little adjustment there, and then start again. And you'll know from experience, you'll get to the end, it's like, oh, I should have been a little bit bigger. So just the tiniest little adjustment. And then even then, don't necessarily start again from the start. Go back halfway back round, and it may be such a tiny measurement difference that you'll get away with it. Because don't forget, still, we're now drilling and then we're going to be phrasing out. So there's lots more opportunity to even it out, even if these dots are not perfect. However, it's very, very useful if they are perfect, because it's a great guide and you're not adjusting for previous mistakes as you go along. You're just working perfectly and correctly. It's a quicker, easier way to work. Stage 2 or 3. I suppose making the ring will be stage 1. Marking it out stage 2. So now we're on stage 3. Get a very fine ball phrase. Doesn't really matter what. This is something I think is how people will do it differently. They may go around it, pushing that dot in. I don't like that because you're forcing the ring about. You're putting pressure on it all the time, so you're stressing it out. Imagine you're the ring. You don't want to be stabbed around like that. So get a small ball phrase. Start from your start, just because that's it suits my OCD. and just put a little dot in there. And this is going to be a guide for your drill, so your drill will go in exactly how you want it to. So just go around it. Be careful, obviously the phrase can move about, so what I do is, I've got my thumb there, just sort of almost rest it on my thumb if I need to, rather than just doing that, because just your whole arm can move it around. Try and steady it as close to the end as possible, and that'll give you a nice accurate. My eyesight is bad today. Some days eyes don't focus very well. I think it's to do with sleep. Although I am recovering from a bit of a cold, so maybe it's that. Last two, so you go, last one. Boom, right in the middle, perfect. Next, drilling out. Now you need a thin drill, quite a fine one. This is, if you're interested, a .7, just under 0.8. Now it's important that it's sharp, which this drill isn't that much. Alright, let me get this. So it goes in this way, so the sandpaper edge is downwards. That's the way you always use them. You don't zzz things like this, you hold them very nicely and then zip, zip, zip. I love these things. That's in there. Get your drill. Right. When things are as thin as that, I just loop it. I've got a watchmaker's glass just so I know. I might have to draw some diagrams to show you exactly what I'm doing. Hang on, let me zoom, see if I can get a good zoom on this. So what I'm doing is, this is the best way to sharpen a drill. Don't bother with your oil stone going zit 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 by hand. That's what they showed me at college. It was junk that way. It takes forever. It's a very quick job to do. So, you know, the drill you've got. When you look at a brand new drill, if you can, so you can see how the end is. But you've got one side is tapered and tilted like that, and the other side is tapered and tilted the opposite direction, and that gives you that blade which cuts and then draws the metal up through the flute of the drill. So use some kind of magnification. Make sure you've got those blades towards you and away from you. Then put your disc on, tilt it at the angle I want, and then go this way and then just this way slightly, so you know what you're doing. And then, without moving anything, rotate it 180 degrees, and then same again, this way and then that way. Have a look from the side, make sure your point's in the middle. I'm just going to do my one a little bit more. Make sure you're not, when you're cutting, make sure you're not rocking it about. It's got to be flat. Obviously this is easier on a bigger drill. But have a look at that. You should have a point and the blades should be sharp. See if I can show you that. Okay, the camera's not gonna... Come on. Can you see that? I cut this blade, it turned at 180. Then I got this blade at the angle. When you should look across this side, the point should be in the center. Ah, come on. That's what you're looking to cut. That should work nicely. And if it doesn't, adjust your angles and make sure that point is dead in the center. Time to drill. Got my awesomely sharp drill in. A touch of oil. Only on the end is where you need it. Securely on your bench peg. Again, going from your very first one, I drew a little line on the side of my ring, by the way, so I can go straight to it. Now, drilling. you're going to drill all the way through, and the skill of your drilling is going to be very apparent to people when they look inside the ring. Because if you're going off, it's brutally obvious when you've tilted the drill the wrong way. If you're going off that center line, I would almost recommend using your dividers to get a line around the middle of the inside as well. But so the technique to do it well, you put it in, and I look down on it, make sure that is going to go straight down. The way I said in my other videos about putting claws on, you get your circle and you're always cutting or drilling down to the center of the ring, not to the side. So just with that in mind, straight down, and then that gives you the guide for left and right. You're just going down to the middle, down through the middle of the ring. So I'm looking down, making sure the drill is straight up, and then I'm looking from the side, making sure it's going to go to the center. Just get my lamp out of the way. So let's do one. So straight down, have a look. Make sure it's in the center of the ring as well, which mine isn't. Drill's good. Okay, so that's lined up well now. Again, looking, it's going to go to the center. Looking above it, going straight down. It's in the center of the ring. And you can take your time. You've got to do this with every single hole. And my hole, it should go through and then open up directly in the center of the ring. And there is a chance, like if you keep checking the inside, there is a chance you can see it's about to break through and you get a little bump before the metal actually breaks through. Sometimes that little bump is slightly left or right, so you can just boop, just tilt it a little bit back to the middle. But I'll be showing you further down how to neaten up the inside as well. It's very unlikely you're going to get it machinely perfect, drill holes all evenly spaced, all right down the center. Sometimes you get half of it really good, and then there's just one completely off. But there are techniques to neaten that up as well. But always try to be as accurate as possible with everything you do. Don't work thinking, oh, I'll tidy that up at the next stage. You want to be good. You want to be good at every stage. Not just have a finished piece that you worked loads on to make it look like you did it well. When you get confident at this, you can just line it up and then brrr, go straight down. But as is my first one, I haven't done this for probably a year, maybe not that long, but just get my confidence back. So that broke through, there's hardly any drilling. Look at that, right in the middle. Can you see that? Maybe if I push my drill through, there you go, it goes to the center of the ring. That's straight up to the center of the ring. That shows you that's a good neat hole. Also, when you're really thinking to be accurately straight, you're less likely to break a drill as well. If you're being a bit careless, you're going to snap a drill. Boom, on with the next one. Thinking the job through as I go along. Something my college tutor told me, this was in the late 90s, which I didn't really understand or listen to, but it stuck in my mind. He said when you're drilling out stones, like a line for pave setting, do every other stone and then go around and do the ones in between. I didn't really know why, but about 15 years later I was doing one of these and I remembered what he said, so I was like, yeah, I'm just going to try it. It's not what I normally do because I didn't do that before. I started doing every other stone and I found I did it much neater. The spacing is much neater because it's just easier to see what's going on. So I skip one, do every other one. And then once you've gone around it, and then it's very easy just to put the last row of stones directly in the middle, in between each drill hole you already have. I think it's just an easier way to see what's going on and feel what needs to be done where to get the perfect result. I've done 4 holes now to show you. There they are in all their glory. I left all the burrs on so you can see the genuine holes, not like I used a phrase to move them about. Just taking my time and moving along. Moving around. Just make sure that drill is going to start going into the metal where you want it to, in the center of the ring. A tiny little bit of oil, often. Don't flood it, and then don't put any more oil on after you've drilled another 6 holes. Okay, checking that's going to go to the center. Look it down. If you hear any kind of little grindy, scratchy noises, put more oil on. If you break a drill, like you've already seen, you can sharpen it again very quickly. It's not that big a deal as long as it's not broken right down near the bottom or twisted the drill. But you're just wasting time. And then you might have a drill bit stuck in the hole as well, so it's a nightmare getting that out. I've got techniques to show you how to get broken bits of drill out of rings, unfortunately. I've got good at that over the years. I did see a channel the other day, I think it was a American guy setting. He had these ball phrases that were made of some ultra hard metal, and he could just grind out broken bits of drill. Although, that seems great, but it did seem also that he was making a right mess of the inside of the ring. Just hollowing it out. Alright, let me concentrate here. It's the last bit. Once you've got quite a deep drill hole in it, it becomes, as long as you've kept it straight the whole time and not moved it around, it becomes like a guide, so it should just go quite nicely, as long as you've kept it lined up and not moved it around too much. Just gone through, and there you go, can you see that? Pretty central, all of them now. So that's the amount of care I give each hole as I'm going around. First stage done, gone all the way around it. I'm looking at the inside holes there. Not perfect, but certainly good enough to look neat when I've finished. What we're going to do is afterwards get like a flame phrase, like a pointed ball phrase, and just touch the holes around the inside, and then you can, if you need to, you can pull them left, right or up and down and just get them all exactly down the center and all the same size. These are my raw drill holes, and they're pretty well spaced and down the center. Now you've got your every other stone drilled out. Getting the position correct in between these now is much easier. However, be very careful, because inside they're much closer due to the outer circumference is bigger than the inner circumference, so the stones are all going to sit closer together, which is very unforgiving when you start going wonky with your drill. So be very careful. Here easy, but have it in mind that you've got to be super accurate where it comes out. So I would really take your time, and then, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes the drill starts to push the metal out before it drills out. Have a look. If you see that, you see a little bump coming, like the drill's just about to break through. If it's slightly off, then obviously you'll know what to do. You can tilt your drill slightly back towards the center. I'm just about to do the very last hole. There we go. Checking the center. nice in between those. I'm just pulling it down a little bit. And I'm going to show you the back drill holes, because it's entirely possible. The ones around the outside look as neat as they could possibly be, and then the inside could just be complete junk. Now when you look at a handmade piece of jewellery, have a look at the back and the inside, and that tells you a story about how it was made and the level of ability of the person who made it. This is a bit of a chore doing this, but if you just get on with it, it doesn't take long to finish really. A little oil often is better. I was just thinking, I need cylinder phrases to finish this job, and I don't think I've got one thin enough. I'm going to buy a whole pack of them, of all sizes. Thing is, now I'm right in the deep in the countryside of Japan, in the Shikoku Islands. My nearest like jewellery trade suppliers is literally either a flight or a proper boat journey away. Okay, so I get everything by post now. Alright, I'll show you a close-up of that if I can. So we're paying attention to the back holes. This is as neat as mine are. The distances between them are quite good, but they do go slightly off centre. I didn't draw that centre line with the dividers like I said you should do. I recommend doing that, it gives you a good guide. Yeah, not bad, and I can certainly clean them up to look very good. Oh, there's a bit dodgy, look at that one, that went off. If yours is as neat as that on your first attempt, you're on a path to being a very good jeweller. I've got a bit of experience doing this, so I'm quite good, but obviously you can see they're not perfect, so I'm still looking to improve every time I do it. Next step, forget about the back holes for a bit, and now I'm going to open up these to fit my stones. So I've got, I'll probably start it off with ball phrases, just little balls, and then open it up and space it out exactly how I want it with a bud phrase, which is one of those. You can use a flame phrase. To be honest, you could do the whole thing with a ball phrase. Just my preferred techniques. I think these are a bit kinder for getting accuracy, because a ball phrase can go in any direction. This is a bit more well behaved, I would describe it. Open it up with the ball phrase and then get it exactly where you want it, and obviously the diameter have all got to be the same. This is a bit better control with this, so I recommend using this if you have one. Cup of tea number 2. Okay, right. What are we doing? Ball phrasing. Right. So my stones are 2mm and 2.1mm that I'm putting in this. I don't want them to go over the edge. This is a good one to use. I'm just looking, putting that over my ring, making sure it's not bigger than I want. I suppose you can measure it. Personally, I never measure it, but you can if you want. Look at that, 2. Yeah, it's going to cut 2mm. 2.99 that said. So I'm using this one. Just put it over the hole and open them up. Maybe it's advisable to do every other one, like we drilled them. Yeah, do that. Do every other one with your ball phrase. Not oil anymore, using either beeswax or whatever this is. I got this in Osaka last year, or the year before. You can buy this in any jewellery trade place. It's kind of waxy. Do you know what? This stuff is good for saw blades and phrasing out when grinding, but it's not good for pulling down wire. It's kind of dusty. It does melt like wax, but You can't beat beeswax for pulling down wire. The old school stuff. Sometime before I bought this, I had a lump of beeswax just melted and stuck there. I really like that because you just get your saw frame and it's just there all the time. You don't have to reach up and use your arms to go anywhere. So when that runs out, I'm going back to beeswax for everything, and I'm just going to stick it right there again next to my peg. So I'm going to start to phrase this out. Doesn't matter where you start. Be a bit careful when you start because it can zing off. Wow, this is not sharp at all. Yeah, it's not bad. I drilled 3, and just having a look at my sapphires on there now. Just to double check. Oh, I probably should have done that center one. I'll turn this middle one upside down just so you can see the distances. So they are like just on there nicely. Not quite touching, like a cigarette paper's worth of distance in between. I can control that. When I open them up a bit deeper. But I'm quite happy with that. I'm pulling this one this way a little bit. Doesn't help this ball phrase is quite blunt. I'm going to change it. That's why I'm pushing quite hard, it's not really cutting. So far it's been very easy opening them up, and they've all landed quite evenly spaced. Again, goes back to taking the time to drill it out properly, which comes from taking the time to mark it out properly. Every time you do something correctly, you make it easier for yourself at the next stage. If these are all wrong, I'll be having to, every single one, having to pull this one this way, pull that one that way, and then work hard to get all the spacing correctly. Just get it correct at the first stage. Right, I want to open these up enough so my stones drop right down in there. If you have stones, remember, because of the circumferences, the lower the stone goes, the tighter they all are going to sit next to each other. So if you want to set some very deep into it, like doing kind of pave, you want to have them sitting on the top, with a tiny space in between. And then as they all come down closer together, as they all sink, all those spaces will tighten up. Keep that in mind. So this is progressing quite well. I'm just going to go around it and then phrase out all of the holes now. I've gone all the way around it, just neatening them up. Just looking where they're not quite spaced out perfectly. Also, another benefit of having them all drilled out nicely, you're opening them up directly above the hole. If you've got to start moving things around too much, your holes are not really making sense to where the stones are sitting. Everything's like this. What I'm doing is looking where the stones are sitting in relation to each other. You can pull them across a little bit left or right. Just trying to get them as even as possible. This is something that I'm not good at. like other jewellers I worked with have just been super neat. And I did a competition in the World Skills Olympics in the 90s. I went to Montreal to represent Great Britain as an apprentice jeweller to compete to be the best in the world, under 23-year-old apprentice jeweller. And the guy who won it was from Japan, and I'm actually still in touch with him. And the piece he made at the end, it was just so perfect. Like, if you saw that, you'd just be, this is a master craftsman. No, it was just a Japanese apprentice jeweller. His company is called Hirumi, like H-O-U-R-O-U-M-I, I think. It's based in Osaka. If you look it up. He showed me around his workshop, and I was quite amazed at the stuff they're working on. He had this one kind of mushroom ring, like this big ring. It was diamonds all the way around it, every angle, and the back holes were all hexagon. They cut perfectly, and that's how the level he takes it to. Not only were they these six-sided hexagon cut back holes, each facet of that hexagon was being buffed back and polished. When I went there, he showed me, he had this string going through all these holes. There must have been like 200 holes in there. Like, it's amazing the level they take it to. But he was saying, like, some Japanese clients, when you make stuff for them, it's got to be super perfect, like so perfect. So because of customers demanding that, it sounds like a pain in the arse, but it actually is training you up to be better. So next time a customer gives you a hard time about something they don't like about a ring that you've made them, you should say thank you. Because they might literally be ordering you to go back and start again, and you've got to make it better next time. Next stage, check this out. Moving on, we are going to get a saw frame, saw blade, line it up directly down the middle of the ring, and then I'm going to cut a line about halfway down the ring, halfway down the depth of the ring, maybe a third, not quite half. And this is going to be our guide. This is very quick because the metal is very thin in between the stones. So I'm looking directly down onto it, making sure the saw blade is staying directly in the centre and not slipping off the edge like that. What this is for is we're cutting a guide for a cylinder phrase which we'll use next to open this up. But just get it down the middle. Excuse me. Gone all the way around now. Just neaten it off. And you should have a line going all the way around. Next step, once you're happy with how you've phrased it all out, get a cylinder phrase, quite a thin one, and now we've opening up that saw cut we've put all the way around the centre. So just going around, zip, 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 all the way around, and we'll have nice neat little scoops dividing the left from the right. You'll find it cuts down quite quickly because there's only a thin bit of metal sticking up in between the stones. Obviously that's spinning, so it pulls one way more than the other. So bear that in mind. You've got to keep it dead central. At the moment I'm only going down about half the distance of that cylinder phrase thickness. I may need to go around it once more to get it a bit deeper. But this will make the height of the claws you use, so make them as long as you can without weakening the ring. I tend to spin it and drag it backwards. There's no reason why you can't go the other way and just tap it down, moving it. It's whatever's comfortable for you. Just only important thing is keep it in the middle. It should be easy to do if you cut it well down the centre. Gone all the way around and a bit. So looping it now. Just checking I've got the same depth all the way around. Okay, I might touch it a bit more, but for now that's fine. So you should have something like that. So that stage was nice and easy. On to the next one. Now this is quite an important one. I suggest you take your time with this, because what we're doing, we're cutting down left and right side of each stone. So from the side you're gonna have all these little half-shaped scoops. So if you get them a little bit wrong, if you go down too far or one's more left, one's more right, it's gonna look a mess from the side. So this is actually really important, set a stage to end up with a nice looking ring. So get a phrase. I don't think there's any kind of rule. So I'm just looking around at my cylinder phrases that I've got to use. I'm going to use this one, and looking at it, the thickness of this phrase is about half of the diameter of the stones I'm putting in here. So whatever thickness your ring is, whatever size stones you've got, look at phrasing it out with something half that distance. So I've just been phrasing these out and then realised my camera was not recording. So I've done two that are not on camera now, but basically, let's do a third one for you. I decided to do every other stone just to help me keep it all spaced out nicely. My holes are all drilled out very neatly and evenly spaced, which is helping me out again, getting this stage all lined up well. So I'm thinking about going straight down and then tilting it and then going straight down again. Bit of depth, and I'll hold it at an angle. This is one of those cylinder phrases I was talking about my dentist gave me. It's too severe for this job, but it's all I've got, which is the right diameter. So there you go, that's 3. I'm going all the way around the ring now, hitting every other stone, and then judging it on how they are distanced. If I don't like how close or far apart they are, I will choose wisely where to put the dividing one. I've gone all the way around now and have started doing the in-between ones. This is why I mentioned it's important to be very neat and accurate with your distances, because when you start doing these close to each other, if one's really thick and one's really thin, it just looks a mess. And if you go too thin, you've kind of ruined it, because that's a claw that has to be either split or pushed over 2 stones. You'll be careful because it's pulling, as it rotates, it's pulling one way. So always make sure you're staying in the centre. Sometimes it feels like you've got to put a bit of weight on it, pulling back down towards you. Otherwise, left to its own accord, it will pull to the right. That's one side completed. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And what I did is I buffed the side flat, and then I used dividers, draw a little line underneath my deepest one, and then I looked very closely and made sure I matched them all up to that deepest one. So they all finish at exactly the same depth, which goes a long way to making it look very neat. Important things when you're doing this are, again, like drilling, always phrase it directly down to the center. Don't start phrasing it left or right. So each one, like paying attention to that top, each one goes direct to the center of the ring. You remember that every time you phrase one out. So I quickly zinged around my other side. That's both sides done now. It's a normal experience. The second side feels very quick because you just have practice doing the first one and you kind of know exactly what to do, so you just crack on with it. It's one of those kind of jobs. It's a bit of a chore, I guess, but if you just concentrate and pay attention and get on with it, you get it finished sooner rather than later. So what I'm going to do with this one now, definitely lowering that center a bit more, because remember, you've taken a lot of strength out of this ring now. That's a lot weaker and easier to bend out of shape than it was before you started cutting into it. So having small holes drilled through are preferable, especially if you're having it cast, because it gives you a lot of space to open it up and neaten it up afterwards. I'm just going to touch, I was tempted to drill through it, but I think I'm going to leave them as they are and just touch the insides to neaten that up and get that nice and straight. Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely going down the centre again with this phrase, and I may just touch it with the ball phrase just to get it nice and round again and get rid of all the burrs that I've just put in there. But this is basically what we have. So kind of finishing stages now. Let me get this. Buzz out the inside. There's a lot of burrs still sticking out from drilling. When you're making pieces of jewellery, I highly recommend using these solid. I used to make these and then you could start to buy them, which is great. But they stay nice and parallel. If you use the old type whizzers where you used to just slot paper in, that's just flapping about and then you end up rounding off corners with it. It's not that accurate really. So they have their moments, but these are usually always better. Okay, regarding these, what we're doing, some of these are slightly off center, so I'm going to find a bud phrase smaller than that. I'm just going to touch it in, like say that one is slightly to the left, so I'm just going to touch it on the right hand side, probably keep it quite straight, and just touch the other side. So yeah, it's going to go from round to slightly oval, but I'm getting the illusion of it to go right back to the middle. And then obviously you can adjust that with the distances between the stones, the holes, as well as left and right towards the edges. So I'll just turn it around on that one and then go the other way and just go around it, go around the whole thing, get it all nice and straight. And then once I've got my adjusted holes, so I have the round hole which I've made kind of oval, and then I'm just going to touch it dead in the centre with a very small ball phrase, and then that will make the whole thing look much neater. Bud phrase. Don't put it all the way in, have it out quite a bit so you can get it right up close. I'm looking at it, that one's okay. This one he's pulling it across, so I am just touching it on that side. Next one, a touch. Next one, that's probably my worst one. Be careful not to open it up more the wrong way. That's right. This one's a little bit closer to that one than that one, so I'm pulling it down here. It's alright. This one's a bit off that way. Pulling it back across. So I'm going to get a ball phrase now. Where's my ball phrases? I'm choosing one that is bigger than the hole. I'm not really pushing in at all, but I'm just rounding off. I have to round it off to make the little scoop circular, encompassing the odd shapes which I've just made some of the stones, and then really try and get this in the centre. If you start going off with this one, you're going wrong. So this one has really got to be in the centre. Not necessarily over the hole, but centrally over the shape which you've just put in there. I hope that makes sense. Again, not all the way in, slightly out. Maybe going at a nice straight angle, if possible, will help you. This is probably another moment where you should go every other one. You find the more you look at it, the more you won't like it. Worst case scenario, you would put a bit of wire in there and solder it up and then re-drill it. But you really shouldn't be making things considering big repairs like that. You want it finished at a good level, not covered in repairs. I'm doing every single one, not just the ones I worked on. Oh, what a bad one. After casting, these are going to look super neat. Oh no! I think that's all of them. I hope this is showing up nicely on the screen. But yeah, these are my exit holes. They look a lot neater than they were, but I've kind of faked that just by scooping out around the outsides. I have just finished going around it. I made it quite a lot deeper, so it now matches the depth of what I went to with the side one, pushing down first. I've yeah, matched that depth all the way around. Now with the, this is the last touch. It's tempting just to quickly zing round it with a ball phrase to open up the holes, but you do actually have to do this quite carefully. You don't want it to drift off and ruin the claws you've made. Also, it's quite catchy in there because you've got cutting metal down on 4 points, not just all the way around. This is quite satisfying when you get to this stage because it's really taking shape. As long as you're confident that your stones are going to fit, and it's all nice and neat. Every claw either side of your drill hole should be exactly the same. If you've really measured it with your digital calipers, they won't be the same. But you tried your best, and that's the main thing. See, this is all done by eye. I didn't measure a single thing. Do you remember I didn't even really measure the stones? I just started drawing dots. And then with my dividers got the distance between those dots. It wasn't really measured, just gauged by eye. And it's, like I said, I'm sure some like setters and professional people will be rolling their eyes at my techniques, but it works. This has come out good. So once I've gone round it with the ball phrase, this is kind of done. I'm going to ultrasonic it and make sure there's no like wax and dust stuck in the holes, because I'm going to have it cast, make sure it's all clear and good to go. But yeah, reasonably happy with that, and not a massively time-consuming job, but it is a bit of a chore going around it. You've just got to concentrate and get on with it, and then you will finish it quickly as long as you continuously work and concentrate on getting it done. So there you go. A wedding ring to full eternity ring conversion. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found the instructional video useful. That's the full eternity ring, or it could be considered a wedding ring to full eternity conversion. Just the only important things are getting your distances right, taking your time, being accurate with your drilling and phrasing, and you should end up with something quite neat.